Coast Volume 6, starring Rattlesnakedre, Kyle Crosby of Louisiana Dre, and Blake Tauzin.
So we're back at it. Yeah. Back at it. Goes to the coast. We're doing another episode. Should we talk about Kyle? He's not okay. Kyle's not here. I don't know how it happened. He had a head injury on his washing machine. I wish he was here to explain that. I did in the group text that we have. I did kind of make fun of him and ask him if the washing machine was okay. I don't know if he liked that.
I know. It's a shame. We miss you, Kyle.
So what's been up, Blake? What you did today, buddy?
Not too much. I went fishing this morning. Just check out some wildlife in the Chaffalaya Basin. Bayou Black. How about you?
Nice. I went walk a field in between rain today, and I found a couple cool things. I actually brought some to show you and have a couple talking points. And
sweet.
So
what made you decide to go hunting today?
I have severe anxiety, and it leads to depression. So if I don't go do that at least once a week, nobody could be around me because I'll get very aggravated, live on edge. Well, the corporate world I live in now, it's extra stress, so I have to have that valve to release every weekend.
Right.
So that's my goal, is at least once a weekend, and that's probably something you should do too. Once a week, we have to promise ourselves that we get out in our environment of whatever we're, interested in doing that at that time. And
absolutely, I get that way as well. I try to fish at least once a week just to get outside. A lot of times it doesn't even matter if I'm catching, just being out there. But
it's therapy.
Absolutely. I've been going to Pontchartrain and Gibson. How about you? Where you went today?
I stayed kind of close to my house because I knew we were doing our podcast today. So there's a couple fields that were recently plowed closer to my house that I've never even touched before. And I found a couple of really cool things. Nothing super, like, I didn't even pull out my phone to video anything. So, if I don't have a video to show that day, I didn't find anything that was super exciting. But what I did today was I went walk a couple fields, and I found a couple items, and I could date the property by the different things that I found. And that's why I brought, on the side of me, I have a little bag full of goodies that I found today. That way I could explain to you and the viewers on what I'm looking for when I go out there, and why certain things that you would walk straight over are very important to me, and how I do my treasure hunting.
Sweet. Did you, this was in Lafourche Parish?
Yeah, this is probably Lockport area.
Okay.
Or a little bit in between Lockport and Raceland, maybe.
Okay. So you said you scan that field often, different areas of it.
Yeah, I've been north of there and I've been south of there, but these fields, for some reason, were all plowed. I mean, perfect, how I like it. There's no rows, because if you've ever gone metal detecting and you've gone in a field that has a bunch of rows, it is horrible. Your ankles hurt, your knees hurt, you fall like 5 times a day.
All right.
But
so, what you found today?
I'll open it up and we'll take a look at it. So, and I was thinking about it because I know the knowledge that you have, and I'll tell the stories that I know from this. You could hear me dropping everything on the table in front of me right now. So we'll start out with this. I thought this was super cool. So this is a piece of pottery, and it's some little blueberries on it.
Oh, that is pretty cool. It's heavy.
Yeah. So believe it or not, whenever I'm treasure hunting, I fell into, I was learning as I went. I had a couple people that taught me a little bit of knowledge, but through treasure hunting, I realized certain things I had to do, and one of them was I had to learn pottery. I had to learn the dates of it. Just from one piece of pottery, I could tell you what years they lived there, and I could even tell you what nationality they came from. Because some pottery is German, some is from overseas, from Europe, some was made right here in the States, and some was made in Japan. This I'm not sure of. There's not enough detail, but I can tell you that a woman lived in this house because a man would not buy a piece of pottery with blueberries on it. So, and
Reminds me of my grandmother.
Right. Yeah. So there you go. That's the evidence that I'm looking for. So I found this piece of pottery and I'm saying, well, due to the thickness and the white clay it's made out of, I know it's over 100 years old off the bat. Because it has some blueberries on it, I know it's not some cowboy that's like, you know what, I need a blueberry pitcher for my sweet tea.
Right.
So I knew
milk out of
right. So I knew a woman lived there. So that's the kind of clues that I like to pick up. And actually, everything I find out there will give you clues. And that's why I wanted to bring these actual items so I could show you. I could tell you the little bit I know about a certain item. And then maybe you can bounce off of any type of knowledge you know. So you know what this is, right? It's coal.
Okay.
So that would be in a like a wood-burning stove or from a railroad. This is what the trains used to run off of 100 years ago.
How far was any tracks from that area? Like, know, here they got the crossing.
Right. I was about 200 or 300 yards away from the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So I know that they were either walking to the railroad tracks or that train was stopping maybe. Or maybe they worked on the railroad, you know. So that's different clues. Plus, this lets me know the site's over 100 years old. Because they didn't, after 1900, they kind of started to slack off on that.
You sure? How do you know this wasn't just like a piece of some rock gravel or something? Like, how far off of the main highway are you?
I was about 100 feet away.
I mean, I'm just curious.
No. That's a perfect question. I've seen enough examples of it. And if you ever find anything and you have any questions, like if you're getting out there and you're treasure hunting for the first time, Facebook is a beautiful thing because there's different pages that just all they are is ID me, and you can put whatever you want on there, and they will have 1,000 people that'll comment, and that's where I get a little bit of my knowledge from.
You kind of see, yeah. I've noticed that people do that a lot on the fishing groups.
Right.
What else you got here? Like, I'm amazed how, like, none of this is really much metal. So how do you just go over this field and you find in this
right? Well,
this stuff?
I was pissed off because it's been raining for literally 3 weeks now. But I knew after they plowed those fields that the rain would wash everything away. It's just like a beach. You know, a beach will wash all the rocks, wash all the sand away, rather, and leave all those big rocks. And that's what the rain, after they plow these fields, the rain comes down, washes all the tiny bits of sediment away, and these things are basically left on top of the ground. I have a picture.
Like plain sight, basically.
Right. I have a picture of this marble sitting up on top of the ground. Anybody that had walked that field that day would have found all this stuff. But I did find 3 marbles today. And just between these 3 marbles, I can tell you right now.
This one looks old.
That one is the very oldest one. That's a hand-rolled clay marble. And that was put into a fire where it's hardened, so it'll last for a long time now.
And it doesn't even look like it's really like that damaged or anything from being in the field.
And it's weird because that field's probably been plowed for 150, 200 years.
It feels so different than glass.
Right. And then the other one you have is a green marble. And that one's from the 40s. Like, that's probably from the early 1900s to about the 40s they made those. So that lets me know that there was a child on this property because there's marbles. And I'm pretty sure there's not grown men saying, you know what, after work today, I'm going to shoot some marbles. So this lets me know that there were kids on this property. And the kids were there at least 150 years ago, all the way up to maybe the early 1900s because of the 3 types of marbles I found here. So that's
what's that blue piece of porcelain? Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's blue porcelain, and that's either from Japan or China or overseas in Europe.
See, my grandmother had plates. It was like a porcelain plate set with little teacups and stuff like that had this blue design on it. It was French.
Right.
But I don't think the plates are this thick. You know, this one's pretty thick. Definitely the glasses are thin.
Right. And the thicker the pottery, the older it is. That's a couple things I've learned. Like when I go in a field, if I start picking up pottery, I could pick it up and just look what the pottery's made out of. It's this white clay, so I know it's a certain date. And then the thicker it is, the older it is.
Okay.
Because they have some pottery and some beer bottles that are twice as thick as this or more, and those
That's
are
insane.
200 years old. So we already went through the marbles I found. This is pretty cool. This is a porcelain doll leg. So to me, that would allow me to understand, well, at least
They had toys or
they had
doll.
toys, and they had a girl there. Because I don't think little boys were playing with that at the time, but that is a porcelain doll leg. And what's really weird is that's all hand painted.
Wow.
So someone 100, 200 years ago hand painted all that.
I can't even picture that. I've never seen.
What's really creepy is when you find the doll's heads, because the body of it was made from cloth, and then all the legs, the arms, and the head were made of porcelain.
Wow.
So sometimes
okay.
I'll just find like the head laying, and most of the time they're looking straight up at you. So it's really
Scare you. It's pretty
it's
creepy.
really creepy.
That is
So
really
some of the
creepy.
other stuff I found, this is an oyster shell.
Yeah, I was-
And we all know oysters really don't grow in fresh water. I think they can grow in brackish water. I don't know.
they can grow in brackish. Now we do have some freshwater clams
Right.
species here in Louisiana,
Yeah,
but this
native-
definitely oyster.
And this was found, like I said, almost in Raceland,
Yeah.
Lockport, Raceland areas. So they were definitely traveling. And I know the French and the Spanish really loved eating oysters.
Eating oysters. They also use them to build roads and stuff like that.
Oh,
as
like
well.
foundations.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, part of the restoration projects, they actually taking oyster shells from restaurants and stuff like that and reprocessing them and using them to help build up some of the islands for
Oh, cool.
coastal erosion. Yeah, it's pretty neat. We at Nichols, we had a class that we had to sign up to do like community day,
Mhm.
and that was one of the events we can sign up for, was to go process oysters all day long.
That's not bad.
No.
I'd have done that.
I didn't.
You didn't? You said, no, I'm not going to do that.
No, I went. Instead, I went pick up trash on Elmer's Island.
Hey,
So
there you
I
go.
heard, you say, "Hey, my name's Blake Tauzin," in case if you metal detecting on Grand Isle. I caught that. That was pretty funny.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to dodge a bullet there, so I blamed it on Blake Tauzin.
Well, it's interesting that you can't do that on the island, but like all the time they're doing trash surveys and stuff like that. So I mean, you could just be like, "Hey, I'm helping clean up the beach."
Well, I went a week ago. I went to look for a lady's wedding ring she lost,
Okay,
and I just figured I'll just run faster than the cops if they try to come get me.
jump in the water.
Yeah, come get me, bitch.
Yeah. One of the wildest things I found on Elmer's Island, I was doing a trash survey with Bitnip. So we're out there picking up trash, picking up plastics, rope, shrimp cages, nets, stuff like that, all on the island. And what we did was we surveyed what we got, how much we got, and logged it into GPS coordinates with Google Earth. And those coordinates, all that data went into a database that the country does for surveying microplastics. So like at the end of this island, I walked to the back. It looks like someone may have camped there, had a fire. Hanging from a stick that washed up was a rope with dolphin vertebrae tied around it.
No shit.
Like a bola. So I still have that. I picked that up. And it's always cool to find pelican skulls. I don't know if you've seen
They
them.
look wicked.
Yeah. Scratch your back with it.
Yeah. I always wanted to find like those whale bones or the whale skull.
The really huge ones.
Yeah, because I'm sure they have whales in the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they wash up from time to time. So I'd love to get my hands on one of those.
Weirdest thing though that I've seen washed up was a cow.
Oh, and where?
Elmer's Island.
A cow?
Yeah, it was a baby calf.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But a couple years back, one of the last surveys I did, we found a lot of birds. Of course, that's one of the biggest migration habitats
Mhm.
there. So it's like they do constant wildlife monitoring. But like the dolphin were washing up a lot, and the cow, that was a weird one.
Yeah. I would not
So-
think. It's weird when people see alligators on Grand Isle Beach. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very unhealthy and they're probably on the verge of death. But
They just decide to go to the beach.
that's a
for the day.
resilient animal. Yeah, Jesus. I could barely handle a day on the beach.
So what else? What's these beads?
Okay, these beads are really cool. So I found these, and are you Catholic?
No.
Okay. So I'm not Catholic either, I'm Baptist. These beads are from a rosary. So that lets me know the religion that the family was that stayed on this property.
Are they
And
plastic or
they're
glass?
They're
Oh,
glass.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's old.
And probably I'm not sure, I'd have to clean it up some more, but the metal might be silver. The other one I have is sterling silver.
Nice.
But it's just, to me, it's amazing that I could find like a couple little glass beads or a broken piece of pottery or a marble, and it'll give me answers to all these questions. So this is a piece of brick. This is a handmade brick, red clay brick. So anytime you walk into a field and you start finding these red clay bricks, you know that there was a structure or a home there. Little more piece of pottery. This is a musket ball.
Oh, nice.
So whenever I find musket balls, I can basically look at them. Sometimes the bullets will let me know this was a Union soldier, because the Union Army had a certain bullet that they would cast. So if I find this is just a regular musket ball, that could have been from any type of hunting rifle or anything, and Confederates use those too. But if I would find the 3-ringer, which is it's kind of domed on the top and it has 3 little rings, I know that they had Civil War activity there.
Okay.
This is a stem from a clay pipe. So that's pretty cool. And if you don't know what you're looking for, that might just look like a little branch or a little
A
stick.
little bone or something.
Right. But that's actually a clay pipe. So that leads me to believe, they might have had a chick or a grandma smoking a pipe back in the day.
Natives, maybe.
Right. And yeah, because natives made their own pipes and stuff. I just learned that not long ago. I've been getting really into the Native American history.
And even in Lafourche Parish, the native presence was humongous here.
Right.
So very, very well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've found one arrowhead in Louisiana before, but none down here. I'm very interested to see if I can find a location where I know they definitely had. I think a lot of them were in. I can't remember that lake now. It's right off the Intercoastal Canal.
There's a few of them.
I can't remember right
don't
now.
know.
I'm gonna remember later. But I found Indian pottery there. Never found any arrowheads, but somebody had told me a story that the Native Americans would kill garfish, the big giant ones, and they would pull their scales out and use that.
As
Because they
weapons,
were super tough and they were actually pretty sharp.
They are very tough. Like a lot of people clean garfish with cane knives.
Yeah. Or hatchet.
Hatchets.
I've seen one of my buddies.
Saws, like hack saws.
I just figured they had so much food down here that most of the time people fight over food or land.
I think that's why many of the settlers stayed here. Plenty of food.
Yeah.
Especially in between. This is 49 miles from New Orleans.
Yeah, it's not far.
It's part of the fork. So
When you're on top of the Intercoastal Bridge in La Rose, on a clear day, you could see those buildings.
wow.
It's really weird. By boat, it's like 30 minutes.
Wow. That's not far at all.
No.
Why does it take me 2 hours? No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe we
Traffic.
can go by boat one day.
Cody's?
Yeah.
Definitely.
We'll do that.
His can make it.
This is
Mine
the-
no.
Oh, this is cool. This is a tiny little medicine bottle. And I know back in the early 1900s, yellow fever was a really bad thing. A lot of people died from yellow fever. So finding little things like this let me know that somebody might have got sick on that property a long time ago, and that was some medicine they had to take.
I found a few medicine bottles before around Thibodeau. They're always different colors, like the blue.
Yep.
I think green I've had. I've never seen a clear one, though.
I would think that might have been like for an old syringe, maybe, just because it's so
Okay.
small.
That's pretty cool.
And then these are really cool. I actually have like a full cup of those. And those are buttons, obviously. You can
And
see
they're heavy.
because they're porcelain. So that lets me date them. Because plastics didn't come in till I think they had plastics and rubbers in the early 1900s, but it wasn't widespread until the 40s or 50s. but those buttons are all 100, 150 years old. And I have at least 1,000 of these at my house. And what's really weird about it is the people that were working these fields that lost all these were all slaves. So when you pick one of these up, to think that that was on the shirt of a slave that, worked in that field for sometimes their whole life,
yeah.
right? And then I find thousands of them. So that leads you to believe day after day they're out there bending over, picking stuff up, tearing them off their shirt, and
it was
just
a huge sugarcane industry here.
Right, and it was all done by hand.
Yeah. There's pictures of Lower Valley, some of the old tools and stuff. How many you find buttons? A lot?
Oh yeah, almost at every location I'll find at least 3 or 4, but some days I'll find like 20, 30 of them in one location. And in fact, I don't know if I have it in here or not. Let's see. Oh yeah, look, there it is. Check that out.
Is that like part of a uniform?
Yeah, or a piece of shirt that's actually lasted,
through time. Yeah.
Right. I just think that's
orange and white plaid.
Right. Really crazy when you find stuff, that's that old, that's lasted this long.
Wow. That's pretty neat. So, where you going next?
The limited time that I do have, I usually just come straight to Thibodaux, because Thibodaux is like the mecca of where I find all my stuff. I would love to travel all over Louisiana. Natchitoches is one of my go-to places. I've been doing a lot of research there because I know Natchitoches was like one of the biggest cities besides New Orleans at one time, and that's where, like you said, Native Americans started there. And
wasn't there part of it was a native war against the Spaniards? Didn't that happen in Natchitoches?
From the research that I've done, there was Native Americans that fought in every aspect, because we had Spanish that showed up here first, then the French came, they also had Germans that came, and then the Acadians bounced from Canada all the way down the East Coast. But every little bit of research I've ever done, each different nationality has fought against the Native Americans, including the pirates. In Galveston, Jean Lafitte actually wiped out a whole Native American village with cannons.
Wow. I'd seen they were what was it, 1700s, was around when the Spaniards came over. There were more tribes, many more tribes. But they also helped, like here, even though the Chinamachan was like the main tribe, a lot of tribes helped those first settlers start farming and live in this land. They were hunters. I've read stories of natives like following bison through Louisiana, and I was kind of like blown away, because now, you wouldn't imagine hearing that so far south in today's day and age. To see something like that would be.
And when I was looking up Louisiana history, just going through all the different things, trying to find these clues, I saw a picture. When I typed in Native American Louisiana, there was a picture of a Native American sneaking up on a bison. And it blows your mind, because you wouldn't think that would even be around here.
Yeah, I was reading how they stories about how the old Chittamachans would kill deer. All right, so they would track them in like a crescent shape, and they would just scare the deer side to side and make it run against a barrier until it just exhausted and fell over.
That's how I met my wife. No, it's interesting, because a lot of things, like you said, you don't think of Native Americans chasing bison in Louisiana territory, but I guess if you've heard about it, I saw a picture of it.
We hear about crawfish, gumbo, and Mardi Gras.
Right.
That's Louisiana. You
gotta expand your knowledge
just a little bit. And I guess that's one thing, like with me growing up, my family, all hunters, all trappers, fishermen. That's all they do. On my father's side of the family, and they date back with native heritage as well. They were French, kind of interbreeded with the natives. Like My cousin was telling me this weekend he just went out to Grand Isle and they were going flounder gigging during the nighttime, but instead caught a shark. So
It's Grand Isle Beach is a crazy place because you don't know what can, like you said, cows could wash up. You can catch a shark. You can go floundering. Last time I went floundering, there were so many jumbo shrimp right at the surf. I was taking the little, when you go floundering, you take this long, I guess
gig.
like a gig. There you go. And you stab the flounders. Well, I was just beating the shrimp, breaking them in half, and throwing them in my backpack. And I had about 4 or 5 of them, and I just took them home and grilled them up.
Have you ever thought about going further up Bayou Lafourche, like going track maybe somewhere in like Lavityville, Napoleonville, a little bit closer to the Mississippi?
I've actually made my way up there a couple of times, but I don't get to go because Thibodaux is like an hour and a half away from my house. So the further I go, the furthest I've gone treasure hunting is Pierre Part.
Okay.
But the closer you get to the Mississippi River, the better the chances of you finding stuff, because the Mississippi River was the lifeblood of Louisiana. So the first settlers would get there because that's where the big ships would come in, and then they would use Bayou Lafourche and all the other little small bayous to travel. But there was a battle where they had like 5,000 soldiers that was right at the mouth, or I guess where Bayou Lafourche enters
the Mississippi.
Right. And they had boats that shot cannonballs, and then they shot cannons from the bank at the boats, and there was a couple ships that were all lost. So
could you imagine living in Louisiana while something like that is going on? You know, just to picture it, like these are areas you just, I pass them frequently, you know, by road, and you would never think, you know, of anything like that happening. And then, you know, you imagine some Captain Jack Sparrow over here, you know, blowing stuff up with cannonballs. Like
to me, whenever I daydream, that's one of the craziest things that I can imagine is fishing on Bayou Lafourche, or your little camp is right on Bayou Lafourche, and then one day you just see a ship, you know, make the turn, and you're like, that's pirates on there.
Right. And I mean, it's still Mississippi is still used heavily by ships, barges and stuff. So the boat traffic and all is still there, it's still functioning. Now it's more petroleum based and chemicals on the bayou, but it's still just to imagine one of them just start firing off, you know, like it's kind of wild to me.
And I've heard stories of the Civil War because a lot of the soldiers that would come through, 90% of all the plantations were burned down or destroyed. But when the war was taking place, a lot of them were still there. So a lot of times the wealth of the community would gather because they knew if a battle was going to take place, they would show up and it would be the next day or in 2 days. And sometimes they would gather on the balconies or gather in the front yard of the plantation and actually watch the battle take place.
Wow.
And I couldn't imagine, you
That's
know,
pretty
being
hardcore.
Yeah, being, you know, a couple thousand yards away and just watching, because they weren't just shooting at each other from the woods. They would march in line. They would meet up,
fight.
Yeah, 100 feet away from each other. They would start to fire at each other, and then at some point, one side would charge the other side. A lot of the movies we have today, it's just people shooting at each other and one falls, but what a lot of people don't really know, if you go and you read the actual history, there was a lot of hand-to-hand combat. We were still doing hand-to-hand combat with swords in World War I.
Right.
So definitely in the 1850s and 60s, people were getting stabbed to death. Every soldier had a small hatchet.
Have you ever found like anything, like what's the craziest thing you found surveying a site like that?
Well, speaking on this behalf, I've found there's a on the end of your rifle, you have
is it like a metal sword almost?
Right. I'm losing my train of thought. I can't think of what it's called. Bayonet.
Bayonet.
You have a bayonet on the end of your sword. That was covered with a leather sheath, and then there was a little brass tip on the very top, so the blade didn't go through the leather. I found 2 or 3 of those.
Nice.
And then I've also found every soldier had a certain type of, like a little axe, like a little hand axe, because it was a hammer on one end and it was an axe on the other, and it had a small little indentation at the bottom of the axe. And they were all issued this because they had to set up their tents. They had to chop down trees to,
Yeah, they were just showing up here in the boats. They had to set up camp,
right.
basically.
And I found one of those, and I just thought they used it to set up their tent, but there's actual records of people getting killed because you're in hand-to-hand combat. If a guy tackles you...
Might be the only thing you have left,
right,
you know?
You drop your rifle or you shoot your rifle, and now it's not loaded because it takes you about 30 seconds to a minute to load one of those muzzle loaders. You're going to have to grab that axe, and you're going to have to, do that
Do what
guy
you
in.
gotta do.
Thanks for listening to Ghosts of the Coast, a DSR production.